Shalom, hello everybody, Erev Tov, it is Hoshana Rabba. And what I wanted to do in this shiur is share really two stunning ideas, two beautiful ideas which move me so much that I think they'll change your life. One is a midrash, and one is an idea from Rashi which I want to connect to that midrash. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to talk about what I've referred to here as a penultimate scene of Sefer Devarim. And we begin with the Aruch HaShulchan, and the Aruch HaShulchan, actually quoting from the Kitvei Ha'ari and other people, explains what is the significance of Hoshana Rabba. לפי שנתוסף מצווה אחד היום וגמר החג, ובחג נידונים על המים, ובמים נכלל פרנסה ועוד עניינים, לכן מנהג כל ישראל לעשות התעוררות ביום זה בשני אופנים. What the Aruch HaShulchan tells us, what Yechiel Michael Epstein tells us, is that since that this Hoshana Rabba is a final day of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret is a separate chag, and since on Sukkot we are judged on water, and now Parnasah is evaluated by God. As a result of this, we invest significant energy on Hoshana Rabba to plead to God, to seek God's grace and favor and blessings. And then he informs us, again quoting the Sifrei Kabbalah, many people stay up on the night of Hoshana Rabba. This happens around the world where people have a Tikkun Leil Hoshana Rabba, v'korim Mishneh Torah, and they actually read Sefer Devarim. Mishneh Torah is a rabbinic title for Sefer Devarim. And why do we learn Sefer Devarim on Leil Hoshana Rabba? Obviously, a reason could be that because on Simchat Torah we're going to complete the reading of Sefer Devarim, and we start anew the cycle of Limud Torah. That's not the reason brought down in the Sifrei Kabbalah. Instead, Mipnei Shebashem Ikar Avat Hashem V'Yirato, because in Sefer Devarim we find the most explicit expression of our duty to love God and have a sense of awe of God. Sefer Devarim is ultimately the Torah's Musa Sefer. And so, as we conclude this period of the Yamim Noraim, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, all the way through Sukkot, and here now, Hoshana Rabba, and God is judging us on Parnasah, and God is judging the world on Maim, and what God grants to the world. We stay up and we plead to God, and remind ourselves how we need to be better, how we need to grow. We learn Sefer Devarim, because there you can find the most explicit and powerful, the most potent, the most distilled expressions of our duty to love God and to have fear of God. And he goes on and he says, we read Tehillim, and there's a special Hiratzon of Hoshana Rabba, and then he talks about how some people go to the mikveh early on Hoshana Rabba, and how's a whole lengthy service, etc., etc. But here now it's Leil Hoshana Rabba. What I want to do in the spirit of Hoshana Rabba is to learn a part of Sefer Devarim with you. Learn both a part which is evident, an explicit part, and a part which is hidden, meaning a midrashic idea, not explicit in the Torah, but mentioned in the Medrash Tanchum. Before we do that, let's be Messiah Sefer Devarim. And Sefer Devarim ends with reference to the breaking of the Luchot of Moshe Rabbeinu, which of course is very relevant to this period of time. Between Elul and Yom Kippur is when Moshe was up Har Sinai receiving the second set of Luchot in light of the first breaking, the first shattering of the Luchot. And Moshe comes down with a new set of Luchot. And the final words of the Torah, Le'nei Kol Yisrael, according to Rashi, is a hint to how Moshe previously broke the Luchot to stand up for the honor of God, how God obviously forgave the people, and how God gave us the Luchot Shniyot. But I want to show use something very, very profound, which we'll explain a little bit later on. Here, this is Rashi's commentary on the final word of the final verse of Sefer Devarim, the final book of the Torah. Moshe chose to break the luchot out of protest to the Jewish people having worshipped the Egel HaZahav. We see evidence that Le'enei references how Moshe broke the luchot in front of the eyes of people. We are also taught that HaKadosh Baruch Hu concurred with Moshe's decision to break the luchot. As we are told them, Pasha Ki Tisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that which you broke, meaning I approve with you smashing the luchot, which is understood to be code for Yishar Kochacha Shekibalta. Good job, well done, Yishakayach, for breaking the luchot. Now, most editions of Rashi end there. But if you look in the Defus Rishon, the first edition of Rashi, there are 5 extra words. Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Model. Praise be the student whose master concurs with him. What a beautiful ending of Rashi's comment. In fact, it doesn't appear in later editions of Rashi. The Bavitcher Rebbe suggests that these words were appended in order to end off Rashi's commentary with something more upbeat. But it's significant that Rashi chooses to end his Torah commentary with the words Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. Praise be the student whose teacher agrees with him, concurs with him. Here referring to the breaking of the luchot, here referring to the Yishar Kochacha Sheshiba. What I want to do now is give it a whole different explanation. These words, Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Model. So, just hold that thought. Praise be the student whose master concurs with him, agrees with him. And what I now want to do is share with you a midrash. It is, without a question, the most stunning midrash I've ever learned. When I learn this midrash, it often brings tears to my eyes. It's found, for those who want to know, in the Medrash Tanchuma, Parshat Et Hanan, Otvav. I have my Medrash Tanchuma here in front of me. And the first time I learned this Medrash, it just made me melt. This midrash refers to the final day of Moshe's life. The end of Sefer Devarim is all about the transition of Moshe's leadership to Yeshua's leadership. Moshe is told, you're going to die, you're not going to enter the land of Israel. He gives these stirring words, these Divrei Musa, which is why I mentioned before, Sefer Devarim is a Musa Sefer, and that's why it is customary to learn Sefer Devarim on Leil Hoshana Rabba. But what happens in the last day of Moshe's life? Well, God said to Moshe, I'm sorry, you're going to die, you're not going to enter the land of Israel, and Yeshua is going to take over. עד עכשיו היה חלקך לשרת לפניי, ועכשיו עבד חלקך, והגיע שעה של יהושע תלמידך לשרת. God says to Moshe, until now, you have been the leader of the Jewish people, and thank you. But now, it's a time for your disciple, of your student, Yeshua, to take over. Responds Moshe Rabbeinu, Amar lefanav riboni, im mipnei Yeshua ani met. He says, if the reason I'm dying is because you want him to have that job, Eilech v'yeh lo talmid. I won't die. I'll be his student. Moshe says, if that's the reason that you want me to die for him to take over, let him take over anyway. I'll be his student. Let the tables turn. I was his master, and he was my student. I'll learn from him, and let me live. This Tanchum, it's so gorgeous. אמר לה, עשה לקדוש ברוך הוא, אם אתה רוצה לעשות כך, לך עשה. God says to Moshe, if that's what you want to do, then go and do it. God tells Moshe, if if you want to live longer, and you think the reason you're dying is because I want Yeshua to take over, and you think that by stepping aside and letting him take over the leadership, you'll live longer, and you're going to learn from him, and do so. Amad Moshe yishkim lepitcho shel Yoshua. Moshe gets up, and he goes into the tent of Yeshua. What is Yeshua doing? He's a lamdan. He's a Talmud Chacham. He's somebody who's been learning from the greatest teacher there ever was. Hey, Yeshua Yoshev Doresh. Yeshua was learning Torah and teaching Torah. So what does Moshe do? עמד משה וכפף קומתו והניח ידו על פיו, נתעלמו עיניו של יהושע ולא ראה אותו, כי הסתער ישלים עצמו למיתה. Moshe comes in, he bends over, he closes his mouth, he's not going to say anything. And he walks in a way so that Yeshua doesn't see him, because if Moshe sees Yeshua seeing him, he's going to feel heartbroken. He's going to feel sorrowful. He's going to resign himself to death. So Moshe comes into the tent and find a place to sit, to learn from his student Yoshua. Continues the medrash. Now, at that moment, Moshe is still alive. Who are the people asking shilas of? Moshe. They come to Moshe to ask him questions, for him to teach them Torah. But where's Moshe? Where's he gone? Shalu v'amu, they said, where is he? Moshe Rabbeinu, heichanu hu? Some of the people said to them, he's gone and went to study in the tent of Yoshua. So people go along to the tent of Yoshua. Halchu matzu pitcho shel Yoshua. Yoshua yoshev, Moshe omed. Yoshua was sitting and teaching, and Moshe was standing. At that time, the teacher would sit and the students would stand. That's why Matan Torah is called Ma'amad Har Sinai. We stood and received the Torah, which is why in Pirkei Avot it says, V'hemidu talmidim harbe. So Yeshua sitting, Moshe standing. And they can't believe what they're seeing. Amru lo Yeshua, Ma'al talibcha. So Moshe Rabbeinu omed v'ata yoshev. What on earth is going on? You're sitting and he's standing. You're a teacher and he's a student. Now remember, by this point, Yoshua didn't know that Moshe was present. When Yoshua sees his master teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu in his tent, learning from him, he initially rips his clothes. He can't believe he's in mourning for what's happened. He says, my teacher, my father, my Lord. He's heartbroken. He's heartbroken. His teacher feels that he needs now to learn from his students. He feels terrible that he's the one sitting and his teacher's the one standing. What happens? Amar Yisrael and Moshe, the people continue to speak to Moshe. And they say, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, you're our teacher, you're still alive. Moshe, our master, our teacher, Lamdeinu Torah, teach us Torah. Amar Lehem, says Moshe, I don't have permission. I'm only alive because God let me live a little bit longer on condition that I'm not the teacher, I'm the student. And I can't. Let's learn from him, not from me. They said, we're not leaving you. We're not going to stop learning from you. A voice from heaven comes along. It says, learn from Yeshua. So what happened? The people say, if it's a bat call telling us what to do, we better do it. Yashiv Yoshua Barosh. So Yoshua sits down. He's at the head of the table. Moshe b'mino. Moshe to his right. Uvnei Aaron mismolo. You got Elazar and Tamar, the sons of Aaron, to his left. Yoshua Yoshev Doresh b'pnei Moshe. Moshe is now sitting, but Yoshua is the one teaching. Just to imagine what's happening here. Moshe wants to live. He doesn't mind not having the position of leader. It's not about that. Moshe wants to live. He doesn't mind being humbled by sitting and learning in front of his students. Why is Moshe doing this? He loves Torah. Moshe loved Torah enough that he was prepared to sit and be a student in front of his student. He was prepared to stand, in fact, whilst listening to Yoshua give a shir anonymously at the back of a class with his mouth covered. And when Israel go to him and they say, teach us Torah, he says, I can't. And he was shut. Why does he do this? Because he loves Torah. Continues the Medrash. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonatan. Rashash Amar Yoshua, Baruch Asher Bachar Batzdikim, Nitlu Mosorot Chochma Moshe Nitlu Yoshua. ויודע משה מה היה יהושע דורש. When Yoshua starts talking about the transition of knowledge from Moshe to Yoshua, Moshe doesn't really understand this new chapter, this new tkufa in the history of the Jewish people. After this class, the people said to Moshe, can you explain? He said, I can't tell you. I have nothing to tell you. No longer my time anymore. It's Yoshua's time. Moshe stumbled, had fallen, not physically, but he'd realized this is it. באותה שעה אמר משה, ריבון העולמים, עד עכשיו ביקשתי חיים, ועכשיו הרי נפשי נתונה לך. Until now I asked him to live. But now I realize that the future of the Jewish people is not on me. I need not to be here for Yoshua to be the next leader. He's not holding back my living. But I'm holding back the progress of the Jewish people. How beautiful this medrash is. Moshe sheds any element of any ego, anything to do with him. I want to learn Torah. But even when he's learning, and people ask him questions, he says, I can't answer. And even when they ask questions about the Shia, he says, I can't explain it. He soon realizes that by being there, he's holding back the people. And so he says, my soul is now given over to you. This medrash is so powerful every day, especially on Hoshana Rabba. As mentioned, the idea of learning Sefer Devarim and what it's saying, both explicitly and implicitly, both in terms of text and the rabbinic commentaries such as the Midrash, what this teaches us is it needs to be an Eved Hashem. Eved Hashem means to do what God asks of you. Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people. He taught Torah for 40 years. And then Yoshua takes over. Moshe says, stay. And God says, okay. There's a condition. And Moshe's happy to read all elements of what he was in order to be a Talmud again, student again. Not the leader, not the teacher, not the lecturer, not the Maggid Shir, not the Mashkiach, not the Rosh Hashiva. He's happy to be the Talmud once again. Because Torah is ultimately the source of life. But then he realizes that even that isn't great for the Jewish future. We mentioned that Sukkot is a chag when we judged on water. But as Chazal say, water is Torah. And so, on the end of Sukkot, on Hoshana Rabba, you learn Torah. We learn the parts of Torah, Sefer Devarim, where we learn about the Eved Hashem Moshe Rabbeinu, who served the Jewish people, who served God, especially this snapshot of him in his final day on this. And the way in which he commits himself, he dedicates himself to Avas Torah, to the love of Torah. So remarkable, it's so beautiful. But there's one more thing I want to share with you. You'll remember that earlier on, I referenced the final Rashi on the Torah, from the Devus Rishon, from the first print of Rashi. And I mentioned how the first print of Rashi doesn't just end in Kol Yisrael, and he talks about Sheshibati Shakach. He adds, Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. Praise be the student whose teacher concurs with him. Why does Rashi end his commentary with these words? It is certainly a beautiful elaboration of what he says there about Moshe making the decision to break the Luchot. I mentioned previously that the Bavitcher Rebbe said it's a nice way to end off the Torah commentary in an upbeat manner. But I think there's a deeper message. Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. Who is a Talmud and who is a teacher? At the end of Sefer Devarim, the teacher is Moshe Rabbeinu. The Talmud is Yoshua. And then Yoshua becomes a teacher. Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. Praise be the student whose teacher celebrates him. It's praiseworthy of him. It's thankful of him. The Torah ends with a story of how the student becomes a teacher. Embedded in that story is how the teacher became the student once more. What does Rashi say? He reminds us of how beautiful that is. Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. Moshe hands off the mantle of leadership from him, Yoshua. He realizes it's no longer his time, it's now Yoshua's time. He realizes that this is how the Messiah works. You have to pass on the baton of Torah to the next generation. Moshe Kibbal Torah Misinai Masral Yoshua. In order for the Torah to be passed down, you need to pass it on. Moshe steps aside to do that. Listen about how he does it. He does it with such appreciation of his student that he's prepared to stand and listen to his student who's teaching. Ashrei Talmid Sherabo Modelo. How gorgeous is that idea? These final 5 words of Rashi, they aren't just referring to Moshe's decision, which God agrees to. They're referring to Yoshua, which Moshe agrees to. They're a hint to the Messiah, to the Tosh Bal Peh. They're a hint to the transition. If we understand Yishar Kochacha Shibarta, that God agreed with the decision of Moshe, then we understand the transition from Dvarim to Sefer Yoshua, that Moshe concurs and agrees with Yoshua being the next leader of the Jewish people. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that stunning? So let's briefly review. We began by looking at the Aruch HaShulchan and mentioning how Hoshana Rabba is when we're judged for parnasa, for water, for sustenance, and how there's a custom to learn Mishnah Torah, Sefer Devarim, Mipnei Shebasham, Ika Avat Hashem Yirato, because in that book is the most profound expressions of our love of God and our fear of God. And there is Shema Yisrael, Right? What does God want of us? That we should fear God, etc., etc., etc. But there's a very beautiful aspect of Sefer Devarim, which powerfully expresses this Avat Hashem Yirato, which is the story of Moshe himself. Moshe Eved Hashem. And though Moshe Eved Hashem is a speaker for the totality of Sefer Devarim, it's really when you come to the Zot HaBracha, where you feel Moshe Eved Hashem parting, but where he's also communicating that love in a very, very strong way. We mentioned how Rashi ends his Torah commentary, referencing the breaking of the Luchot and ending with the word Ashrei Talmid Sharabo Modelo. Praise be to the student whose master is thankful of him. We said, that's interesting. We then look through the Medrash Tanchuma, which tells us how on the last day of Moshe's life, he pleads to God to live and he says, I want to learn. And he becomes, rather than being the Rosh Hashiva and the Dain, instead he becomes Talmud once again. He learns from his student. And though it's initially difficult, he still does it. He stands and Yeshua sitting. He does it because of his Avat Hashem, Avat Torah. And that's what we're supposed to learn from it. And then when Moshe realizes that even his presence there is not helping, he says, because in those final words, nafshinu tunalacha is not just I'm giving my soul to you. Moshe is telling God, my soul was always being given to you. I love you, God. Whatever is a Ratzon Hashem, I'll do. You're telling me that I need to now leave, then I'll leave. Moshe as if looks over and sees his student Yoshua teaching Torah. And he's overcome with pride. He says to himself, my God, am I lucky to have such a Talmud, who's such a great Torah teacher that I was prepared to sit in his class. I was worthy to sit in his class. It's these ideas of the penultimate scene of Sefer Devarim, and then Moshe forced and dies, which I think should lift us and stir us, not just today, but every day. Describing the Mesirat Nefesh of Torah living and Torah leadership. Describe what it means to be an Eved Hashem. Describing what it means to love God. Or describing what it means to pass Torah on to the next generation. That is what we're here for. All chains in this generation, from Ma'amad HaSinai to Bizman HaMashiach, each of us, a little chink in that chain. We pass on what we can. We're blessed to have children, to our children, to our students, to our friends, to our neighbors, to our community. We're all like Moshe. Our task is to take Torah, to learn Torah, to share Torah, and leave a Torah legacy. And I think that's what Rashi is saying here in these last final words. Ashrei Talmid Sharabo Modelo. Learn Torah, love Torah, leave a Torah legacy. That's what Moshe does. And that's what we should do. And our task from now on, we now go from Hoshana Rabba to Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. We celebrate Torah. And then our job is to live according to that Torah that we celebrate. To live in a way that's so passionate, it's felt by the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. That we leave the legacy for those that come after us because of the legacy that was left by those that came before us. We're indebted to them, and those that follow us will be indebted to us. And to each, we say the words, Ashrei Talmid Sharabo Modelo. wish you all Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Sameach.